With us now via the phone is Ralph Reed. He is the founder and president of the Faith and Freedom Coalition. And Mr. Reed, thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, you bet. Good to be with you.
Well, you've been providing Governor Romney a great deal of support in his quest for the Oval Office. What must he say and do tonight in the debate in Denver to hit it out of the park with voters?
Well, first of all, just a point of clarification, Faith and Freedom Coalition is a separate and independent effort. We're separate and distinct from his campaign. We're really about mobilizing, registering to vote, and turning out voters of faith of both parties as well as independents. But I think the debate's going to be critical. And my unsolicited advice to Mitt Romney is that, he needs to be less focused on beating or besting Obama as a debater, because I think that would be falling into the trap of playing to Obama's greatest strength, which is his eloquence and his ability to articulate a message, even if the message isn't accurate. And instead, he should focus on communicating directly to the voters who are yet undecided and who are going to be watching this debate. And he needs to lay out what his prescription is for the country, what his values and beliefs are, who he is, and what his plan is to restart this economy, to create jobs, to grow the economy, and to restore America once again to a position of strength in the world.
Now, although he is pro-life and for traditional marriage, Governor Romney is avoiding these issues in the general election. Do you think that this is wise, considering that it might bring in Hispanic voters, blue-collar voters, and many evangelicals who vote on traditional values?
Well, I think that both Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan have made it abundantly clear that when it comes to the issues that give meaning to the souls of millions of Americans, issues like the sanctity of life and marriage, like religious liberty, where the Obama administration has promulgated a mandate on religious charities, including soup kitchens and homeless shelters and colleges and universities and hospitals, that they have to cover health care services that violate their religious teaching and which assault their conscience. Romney and Ryan have made their position very clear. Mitt Romney did so when he addressed our organization, Faith and Freedom Coalition, in both 2011 and 2012. He did it again when he gave the commencement address at Liberty University, and Paul Ryan did it when he recently spoke to the Value Voter Summit in Washington. So I think that's out there. I think it's been fully litigated, and I think a lot of voters are going to cast their ballot, not just on the economy and jobs, although clearly the election is largely about the poor economic performance of this administration. That's the number one issue in all the polls. But I think a lot of voters are concerned about these issues, and they will cast their ballots accordingly.
The Faith and Freedom Coalition has launched a massive Get Out the Evangelical Vote effort. What can you tell us about this effort, and how does it work?
Well, we have built a file working with third-party organizations, commercial as well as non-commercial organizations, working with voter registration information, as well as church membership and conservative and Christian book buyer data and other consumer data, to build a voter file of faithful Catholics and evangelical Christians that has 17.1 million voters in the roughly 15 to 20 states that will decide the outcome of this election. And we're going to be contacting every one of those households a minimum of 7 times, 3 pieces of mail, 2 phone calls. We have over 13 million cell phone numbers for these voters. In Ohio yesterday, when early voting began, hundreds of thousands of conservative voters of faith received a text message from us that was an Ohio voter alert, letting them know that early voting began, sending them a link to a voter guide so they knew where the candidates stood, and providing them with a link to the early voting location nearest them. We're going to be knocking on about 2 million doors. I think we're going to see the biggest turnout of conservative people of faith that we've seen in a presidential election. and when they come, I think there may be some surprises.
Now, back in 2004, your efforts led to a high evangelical turnout that's been credited with helping former President Bush win re-election. You believe that this effort will do the same for Mitt Romney next month?
Well, it's very hard to answer. I'm not in the prediction business. You know, I'm not a pundit. I couldn't begin to tell you what I think is going to happen on November 6th, other than the fact that I think it's basically a jump ball. I think if you look at the battleground poll that came out, I guess, day before yesterday, they've got it at 49-47. You look at the Washington Post ABC News poll that also came out on Monday, they've got it at 49 Obama, 47 Romney nationally. That's roughly within the margin of error. You look at the Wall Street Journal NBC News poll that came out, I guess, last night. They've got it at 49-46. And the Wall Street Journal NBC News state polls show Romney gaining and closing in Virginia, in North Carolina, in Florida, in Iowa, and in other battleground states. So my sense is, you know, if the race is a two-point race, it's basically tied. So, and by the way, the same is true of a lot of these Senate races. In Virginia, Kane and Allen are basically tied. In Ohio, Mandel and Sherrod Brown are within the margin of error. Todd Aiken has closed, and in some polls is even ahead of Claire McCaskill in Missouri. So, you know, this thing is going to turn out the way it's going to turn out. But I can tell you this, we're going to do everything we can to ensure that people of faith who hold to the time-honored principles of faith and freedom that made this country great, we're going to make sure that every one of them that we can is registered to vote, informed and educated, and goes to the polls.
Do you believe that evangelical voters will be able to overcome their distrust of Mitt Romney's Mormonism and his reversals on abortion? And as a voting bloc, is it pretty much safe to say that they could make or break this election?
Well, I certainly don't want to diminish the significance of the theological differences between Orthodox evangelical Christians and the Mormon Church. Those theological differences are significant. They have deep historic roots. And those differences will remain regardless of what happens on November 6th. But I think that if you look at the polling, you look at, say, the Pew Research Center poll, they found that Mitt Romney was getting about 71% of the evangelical vote. Others show it at about 65% of the evangelical vote. I think it's going to be at least what George W. Bush got in 2000, which was 68%. I think it's more likely to be closer to what John McCain got 4 years ago, which was 73%. So I think this vote is coming. I think it's going to be big. I think it's going to be big numerically in terms of raw numbers, and I think it's going to be big in terms of the share of the electorate. And remember, this is about 1 out of every 4 voters in America. And if you add in faithful Catholics, who are another 12% of the electorate, it's about 38 to 40% of the entire vote. And the polling shows that they're going to be voting 2-to-1 to 3-to-1 for Mitt Romney.
All right, Ralph Reed, founder and president of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, thanks so much for being with us. And if folks want to learn more about your Get Out the Vote effort, where can they go?
They can go to our website, which is ffcoalition.com. That's FF as in faithandfreedom.com.
All right, Ralph Reed, thanks for being with us.
You bet.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.